Okay, so to answer the obvious, yes, some films are made for their moment and some films are found by their moment. And to be perfectly clear, it is extremely likely that Butt Boy, a low-budget indie send-up of hard-boiled neo-noir cop movies that I guess you'd also have to call a horror comedy, has indeed been found by its moment. It's exactly unique enough that it probably would have found an audience, but it's definitely getting close to mainstream attention now because, yeah, everything else is canceled, and the world has now torn through its rainy day rewatch catalog already, and those are the circumstances under which you see a new title on demand actually called Butt Boy, read what it's about and go, yeah, okay, I'm doing literally nothing else. But okay, how to even begin explaining this one? I mean, I wrote shit down, but even that somehow feels inadequate. So, the idea behind Butt Boy essentially seems to be doing a classic formula, two-character cop versus detective story where the gag is that the crime being committed is completely and utterly absurd, but played as straight as it possibly can be played. Not in the dry, ironic, detached sense that no one acknowledges anything is strange, more that it's not, like, that strange. Like, what's going on is cartoonishly, are you fucking kidding me, preposterous to those of us watching it or hearing about it in a review like this, I'm sure, but to the characters in the film, it's only treated about as unusual as, like, Michael Myers getting back up after the police shoot him point blank. You know, weird, unexpected, impossible, but not so ridiculously, stupidly unreal that you could only laugh at it despite the horror of its implications. But plot-wise, in the broad strokes, like most sort of serial killer stories, it's about a suburban, married, dreary schlub of a guy who by chance one day has triggered in his psyche a previously unacknowledged psychosexual compulsion that drives him to act out in an unnatural fashion, which leads to various random items around his home going missing, and then small animals, including the family dog, going missing, and finally a local child going missing, after which point he is so consumed by guilt, he attempts suicide. The story then jumps ahead 9 years to introduce its second character and protagonist. An archetypal, scruffy, long-haired, strung-out, recovering alcoholic neo-noir detective type who's just been assigned a new AA sponsor whom we recognize as the secretly creepy guy from 9 years ago, apparently having failed to kill himself and, we'll soon discover, also failed to overcome his dark compulsions. When another child goes missing under similar circumstances to before, the cop on the edge, of course, is assigned the case and begins to piece together not only the evidence that his own sponsor may be the culprit, but the shocking truth of what he's actually doing, which is, fuck it. You know what? Trailer for Butt Boy, would you please help me out here?
So you're asking me to go off this theory you got about a white married male who happens to be a father living in the suburbs of Critica County, who also happens to be your AA sponsor, has been secretly running around, cramming objects, animals, and children up his ass. Then he somehow digests them, and he does this in sprees, almost in serial killer fashion. Is that about it?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's shoving him up his ass. That's it. That's the movie. That's Butt Boy. That's the whole joke. Totally committed, by the numbers, completely played straight, no winking at the camera. No one knows they're actually in a spoof, hard-nosed detective thriller, but where the shocking crime has to be solved and brought to justice is that a guy is disappearing entire human beings up his asshole. And to be clear, he's not like killing people and then chopping them up and then getting them up. No. Until one point at which it can't really be avoided anymore, this isn't really packed with gore or gross out on-screen stuff. And not just because this is clearly a very low-budget feature. The ridiculousness of the concept extends all the way to not even really attempting to work out the physics of it. It's a serial killer movie where the killer is somehow displacing entire human beings up his ass like a magician's hat. And it's meant to be funny that no one in the film acknowledges that this is at once disgusting and idiotic, but you watching obviously cannot not acknowledge it. So it's True Detective by way of Tim and Eric. And it might be one of the best films of the year. Really. Look, here's what it essentially comes down to. Is this one joke told at the length of an entire film? Yeah, it is. Is it funny? Also, yeah. And that's because in order to work, the movie has to actually be good in spite of itself. Like, you could do the same goofy-ass premise and just lean into the gross humor, play the absurdity, do a wacky gag fest, and it wouldn't work as a whole film because once you've laughed once, that's it, it's just the one joke. But if you actually shoot a good detective movie, if it's actually tense, well acted, good framing and editing, has the right tone and music, you know, rock solid acting, for all intents and purposes plays just like the real thing, you'd even enjoy it even if it didn't have this weird hook to it, then you get sucked in and you find yourself almost forgetting what the movie is about until you don't, and then it's funny all over again, which is really hard to pull off since it requires a crazy strong grasp of filmmaking fundamentals and a very game cast. And Butt Boy, it turns out, has all of those things going for it. The film was written and directed by comedian Tyler Cornack, who also has himself cast as the villain and is both straight up good at the part and also kind of brave at playing a character who we're meant to despise, and is also both pathetic and forgettable by design. And he shows a similar deft eye for filling out the rest of the cast with authentically ordinary seeming people. You know, too often these independent movies of this stature, regardless of setting, have the whole everyone in the cast is a 30-year-old film student because they just cast all their friends thing. But most of the supporting players here feel like real people of ages, types, faces, even ability that you don't usually see filling up the frame, and that matters. But the key here is Tyler Rice as the hero detective, looking, playing, sounding the part just as this close to a over-the-top caricature of every hard-ass detective guy you've ever seen in a movie, to the point someone even comments on it. And it's just this impeccably balanced performance to the same degree. It's unbelievable to imagine that something like Butt Boy working at all. It's impossible to imagine it working without him. He's really great here. And hell, he's almost too good. By the time certain notes of his character come back into play and start affecting the plot, I almost wanted it to start avoiding the cop movie cliches instead of leaning into them, because I was getting invested, but that would be missing the point. And as such, no, I can't say that Butt Boy is perfect, but it's as close to perfect as something called Butt Boy with the premise of Butt Boy is going to get. There may not be more to this than the filmmakers being able to say, no one should be able to do this, but we did this, but they did this, and that's a hell of a flex. So I give Butt Boy a 9 out of 10. For real, this is no joke, the best thing I've watched all year. You gotta see it to believe it, and I recommend that you see it. Butt Boy. Yeah.